Okay, really excited about today's conversation. The topic is how to gain executive buy-in for SEO. I'm really thrilled for today's guest. We were just talking ahead of the recording. I was listening to one of her podcasts and I said, you know what? She would be a phenomenal guest. Let's have her on the search economy and talk a little bit. But I'm joined today by Crystal Carter, who is the head of SEO Communications at Wix. Her podcast, the one I listened to was Play Ball, Why SEO is a Team Sport. And she's the co-host at SERP's Up SEO podcast at Wix. But without further ado, Crystal, welcome. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you so much for having me. It's always nice to talk to a fellow Pacers fan. So I'm happy to be here on the podcast.
Yeah, not what I was expecting out of the gates. You mentioned my discovery questions were, where do you live? And you're like UK, and then follow it up by saying go Pacers, which was not what I was expecting. And we could really quickly turn this into a basketball podcast, but I'm not sure. I'm not sure our audience wants that. Maybe they do, but I figure we'll have fun talking SEO regardless.
No, it's good. It's good. I think one of the things, certainly when I think about the topic that we're covering about executive buy-in, one of the things that I find is really, really important is to find that relatability. So it's really, really important to understand your audience, understand what they tick. If they're basketball fans, then drop in some basketball stuff for them, because that will help keep them engaged and it will, make things more relatable. One of the things when you're talking to executives is sometimes you might be talking in marketing jargon and sometimes you can't avoid it. But, the people you're speaking to in the boardroom, or even if you're speaking to an owner operator sort of person, they're not, just because they don't know all the ins and outs of SEO or technical SEO or JavaScript or whatever it is, doesn't mean they don't know their business, doesn't mean they don't know what's going on. So, if you can find common ground to make things more relatable with metaphors, with common things that you understand, then that's all great.
I think this is going to be fun just based on those opening remarks. There's a lot that I already want to dig into, but before we do, maybe share Wix if anyone is unfamiliar. I'm sure it's a big brand. I'm sure a lot of people know, but would love for you to maybe share what Wix does and then also kind of your role, what you're responsible for.
Yeah, so my name is Crystal Carter. I am the head of SEO Communications. My elevator pitch for what that means is that I communicate the value of SEO to Wix users, and I communicate the value of Wix to SEOs. That's on the back of an envelope. That's how you can sum up what I do. I talk to people on podcasts. I write articles. I go to events. We do webinars. We do lots of outreach, answering questions. We help with the product. We help make the product more knowable. But I come from an agency background, and that's been really, really useful because we have been, in the last year, rolling out our new product, Wix Studio, which brings all of the things that people love about Wix, the velocity that people are able to get with Wix, where you sort of say, I would like to build a website, and you don't have to worry about the hosting details. You don't have to worry about, connecting the domain in the same way. You don't have to worry about, whether or not you've got an SSL. You don't have to worry about loads of those things. You can get going with your website really quickly. And you can scale your website quickly as well. So if you want to add in events, or if you want to add in products, or if you want to add in whatever, it's sort of all included in the same package. And that's really useful. So we have a lot of that's available for Wix Studio, but also with a lot more complex abilities for agencies and professional consultants to provide as well. So I think that when we think about that, one of the things that we really pride ourselves on at Wix is trying to make SEO, trying to make the web more accessible to lots of people. And I think that's something that should obviously be at the front of your mind when you're talking about SEO and buy-in with executives, is making it accessible to them. So that's one of the reasons why I think this is a great topic.
Okay, so I love it. Great setup. Maybe getting into a comment you made previously about getting executives buy-in, getting them to understand the basics of SEO. I think so often marketers are so deep in the weeds with the disciplines, kind of the ins and outs, everything from marketing campaigns to content down to SEO. And I think one of the struggles is, especially when we know we need SEO, is to try to get our executive team to understand what it is without overwhelming them with a bunch of details. So from your experience in kind of maybe your role at Wix or other roles you've been in, like what is the easiest way for the executive team to understand what SEO is and how it can kind of make an impact on your brand?
So we have a fair amount of content on this on the Wix SEO Learning Hub that talks about tying your SEO activity back to business activity. And I think that whether you are the owner operator and you're doing the SEO and wearing all the hats, your HR, your PR, your CPR, all of the things, whether you're doing that or whether you are somebody who's working in an agency space and you're supporting a client, it's really important that you're not just getting traffic for traffic's sake. You're not just ranking for the sake of ranking, but you are tying the goals that you're trying to achieve for the website with the goals that the business are trying to achieve. In my previous roles, I remember very vividly as an agency consultant, I was the lead consultant on that account, and it was a star account, and it was like, guess what, guys? And they're like, what? I'm like, I've got the monthly report and it's fantastic. We got you more leads this month than you've ever had. I've seen all the data from Google Analytics and it tells me that I am your hero. I've done the best thing ever. And they were like, we didn't see that. And I was like, what do you mean? And they were like, we didn't see that. Did you see that, Cheryl? And she was like, nah. Did you see that, Jim? And he said, nah. And they said, what do you mean? They were like, oh, you know what? Susan was on holiday, so she didn't pick up those emails. I was like, what do you mean? And basically we were looking at it and we could see that the conversions were up, and the conversions were, lots of people signed up to the newsletter or whatever it was. But they weren't using the newsletter. They and lots of people have this like sign up to the newsletter on the website, but nobody's manning the newsletter. Nobody's doing anything with those emails. So those conversions are essentially useless. They're dormant. They're not really worth anything. So it's really, really important to understand when you're talking to a business, when you're working with a business, when you as a business owner are setting up, what your website looks like, what, which arrows are pointing, they're directing the users who come to your site. What it is that ties into your business goals. For that particular business, they were trying to sell something, right? Like the newsletter is great, but they weren't ready for the newsletter. Their point in their digital maturity, they had a sign up, but they weren't ready with getting actual like driving leads via an email newsletter. The thing they were set up for was to get leads to sell property. It was a property management thing. So in that situation, all of the digital activity needs to point towards driving those leads. And this includes your design. This includes your SEO. This includes your structured data. This includes the crawl, the way that the crawl is optimized, which pages are at the top level of the crawl, which pages are the second level of the crawl. This has to do with your internal links. All of that should point to what the main driver for the business is, because you cannot pay your bills with clicks. You can pay your bills with money, though. So whatever it is that makes the business money, that's what you should be thinking about, so that you can get paid, they can get paid, everybody can get paid, we can all get along. So if you're able to tie those things to tie whatever your monthly outcomes are to the money of the business, which is what the business owners, what the executive suite are interested in, then that will make your conversations a lot easier. And I've had conversations with business owners where they're like, I keep getting these reports and I don't know why they're telling me this. Like the charts are over here. This is up and to the right. There's a pie chart. There's a donut. There's scatter charts. There's charts galore, because marketers love a chart, but they're not pointing at anything and they're not able to tie it in. So one of the things that's really, really important, we've got an SEO course coming out soon, and a little bit of a teaser, but Judith Lewis, who's a fantastic consultant, she is somebody who's working with us on some content for that. And she is talking about particularly how you can make your executive summary like really, really knowable. That one pager on the front page that says, we did this because of this, and we can see this result because of that. And if we continue on that path, it will have this result for your business, right? Like this blog got this many views, and as a result, this many people signed up, or entered your lead funnel. And we know that there's a 3%, the 3% conversion rate, for instance, for people who come up through that sign up, which means that if we continue at that rate for the next year or so, we should see, I don't know, a 10% uplift in sales or leads or whatever it may be. And you need to be able to understand like the full flow of the value of all of the things that you're doing, not just for the executives, but also for yourself, so that you can focus what you're doing. Because we're in a time of a lot of flux right now. There's a lot of teams that are changing around. They're like, do we AI this? Do we automate that? Do we move this around? Not sure. But if you're able to like pull all the strings together and tie them back to the money. I hate to be that crass, but like we all need to get paid. And if you're able to pull all the strings together, then that makes you more valuable. And that makes you more valuable to the team for lots of reasons. And that means that you can not only speak to SEO, but also to overall growth. Because sometimes if you're understanding, this is the funnel for that. And if you say, okay, Susan was on holiday, so all of those leads just fell down a hole or something, that's not good enough. What can we do to help you not lose leads like that? And in that particular moment, in that moment, I was like, we need a CRM, guys. Like, this is not okay. Like, this is not okay. Like, I know that maybe you're not ready for the email newsletter because, you want to strategize it and get that sort of stuff. Maybe you're not ready for that, but like, we could have a better system for getting when the emails come in, because they shouldn't just go to nowhere. So I think that when you're able to tie it to business things, that can make it really clear, because any business owner, any executive is going to understand the drivers of their business. And if you don't understand the drivers of their business, then they're going to think that you're not useful. But if you do, then they're going to think that you're essential.
So you made the comment about like the business owner not really like, we don't care about clicks. Like we want to focus on the revenue, but like when we think about SEO, we think about like traffic, we think about clicks, we think about conversion, and then whatever the customer on the back end, whatever their process is in order to, whether it's a discovery call, whatever their sales process to eventually get to revenue. When we're trying to have a conversation with our business owner or executive team, like, I guess, how in the weeds do you recommend getting into about the SEO process? Like, do you keep it at a certain level so they understand? Like, what's been your strategy over time to get buy-in from SEO from the executive team?
So I think again, understanding these business drivers should be priority. And I think you need to understand who you're working with, right? So each business owner, each executive team are going to be different. Some people are going to be more savvy about certain things. Some people are going to be very time short. Some people are going to have short attention span. Some people are going to be like details people. So I would say that you should, if you're putting together a report, for instance, either on like a full campaign or on a sort of maybe a micro thing, like maybe you just updated a set of pages, right? Like maybe you just carried out a little optimization session on like, I don't know, you looked at the blog and you were like, we're going to optimize all the H1s. We're going to like do that. And so for those things, you need to be able to detail, like, we did this, it had this result, and we can see this green shoot, right? I think the green shoots is really, really useful, because SEO can have sometimes a long lead time before you start seeing big impact. So if you can say that this green shoot shows that we should see some good impact in a few months, and then you just move on to the next thing and just keep showing them things with green shoots and green shoots and green shoots, and then that cumulatively will work. And I think that also understanding their timelines is important as well. So different businesses will have different timelines. If you're working with somebody like a lawyer, for instance, they're doing like lead gen stuff. They don't mind if sometimes with some lawyers, or certainly in my experience, sometimes with some of them, like if it's a kind of lawyer that deals with like big cases where they're going to get like a lot of money if they win the case, for instance, or if they win the client, like, I don't know, like corporate law or like big litigation cases and things like that, then they're not so time stretched, for instance. They're not so like time pressured. We need this lead right now. Whereas if you're working with somebody who's working in like a divorce space, for instance, they're more like, we need to be able to capture that lead because we might lose them, for instance, in that time. Similarly, if you're working in e-commerce, people have a shop. They need to be able to say, like, this person like abandoned their cart. This person did this. We need to know like what's going on with that. So you need to understand the lead times, and you need to be respectful of those as well. So I think that those can be really, really helpful to think about, like who you're talking to. So if you're in the weeds for like e-commerce, I think you need to, I think that in the weeds for e-commerce, for instance, means having a chart, like having data that is available to everyone. Like it's a Looker Studio dashboard is a fantastic tool in this case because it's live data. And so if you have, particularly if you're working with asynchronous teams or global teams that are on different time zones, then you don't want to be having them asking you every Monday, every Tuesday, every day even for the stats on the SEO. You want them to be able to self-serve and get whatever they need. So you can say, I've built you this dashboard and it shows you all of your conversions, all of your assisted conversions, all of the, the channels, so that when that, if like, let's say some influencer does something and it goes a little viral, then you can see that spike, and then we can chat about it on Tuesday, but you can see it and you can see that, the impact straight away. So that they'll need all of the data. What you need to do as a consultant, as a professional, is to guide them with like what the F they're looking at, right? Like, why am I showing you this data? Why is this important? And I think that what my general rule of thumb is that, like, keep it simple for anybody who's looking at it, but have like the details available. So one thing that I would do sometimes, particularly when talking to clients and talking to fairly savvy clients, is have like a TLDR, a nice summary that's fairly accessible to pretty much anyone. And then if you really need to get into the weeds as to why or what you did, do a loom and just put a link and try to keep the loom to a reasonable time. Like, I try to keep it to like about 5 minutes. If it's super complex, then no more than 10. And then that gives you like options there. You can also, with digital tools, you can add an appendix to whatever you're doing. And with a digital dashboard, then you can have, you can add in lots of detail where they need it. But again, you would include your executive summary, and it could even be one for each page that summarizes what the general trend is. So for instance, if you have a really exhaustive Google Search Console dashboard, for instance, you can say at the top, one sentence that says, organic traffic is up 10%, compared to the previous period, and 15% year on year. Like, our top keyword this month was potato salad. I don't know, whatever it is. And you can summarize it in one or two sentences so that somebody who doesn't care about the data can sort of go, oh, okay, things are fine. But somebody who wants to get into the data can like dig around a little bit, and then they can ask you questions. And you always want to have a time to sort of follow up with any questions. But I think that, if you have the data available, but not necessarily in an overwhelming way. And I also think that when you're creating reports, you should be creating reports for whoever you're working with, because they will have stuff that is important to them. And if you just have an off-the-shelf report, then that will make it seem less transparent, which can make it more challenging for you with particularly with an executive team. Because I think what's really important that people forget sometimes is that, like, an executive team are trying to solve problems, right? They've got lots of problems that they have to solve, and the website is one tool for solving a problem, but it's not their be all end all. So, they've got stuff with HR, they got stuff with, procurement, they got all kinds of stuff to think about. Sometimes the website can help them solve some of those problems. So for instance, during COVID, anyone who's working in an agency, or who's working with, digital clients, particularly in SEO during COVID, we were solving all kinds of problems with websites. Like, we were, we were adding in chatbots, we were adding in, video overviews, we were adding in video tours, we were creating, whole different ways for people to connect with people, and that was a big important thing. But I think that when you're looking at it now, you want to sort of find opportunities to help them solve problems. You want to find opportunities for them to keep things moving and to keep growth going. Across all of that. I rambled a bit. I'm sorry.
No, you're good. I think a big takeaway from what you had to say was just the fact that, like, us as marketers, we live in this world where like the website is everything and we think about it all the time. It's living, breathing, it's a top priority. But for the executives who are trying to maybe position SEO to and sell them on, it's maybe not their top priority. I think when we have that conversation around marketing to the executive team and why they should invest in certain areas, a lot of what we get is they want immediate results on whatever we do. So I think I've always viewed SEO as kind of the long game play, like it's an investment opportunity. It's going to provide results, but those results might not happen the moment you start your SEO strategy. So, like the positioning around that, like what do you find is like the best way to position SEO in the investment and the long approach to an executive team who might be kind of the board might be needing more immediate results from marketing right now? Like, what's that conversation look like?
So I think that it comes down to a layered approach. So there is generally speaking an understanding that SEO takes a few months to get going and a few months to bear fruit and that sort of stuff. However, there are almost always, anytime I've done an SEO audit, there are almost always low hanging fruit, right? There's almost always some quick wins, and that is something that can keep a team enthused, and that is something they can keep and get, that can really help you get buy-in from an executive team, is that they can see that it works straight away. And there are things that are not exactly on the website but are connected with SEO, for instance, that will help drive those. So almost always, if you have a website or a brand that you're working with and they don't have a Google business profile, almost always, if you add a Google business profile to their website, if you start one, even if it's fairly basic, you will see a little boost in traffic, and that's great. And that also helps pull in lots of different strands of the business and helps you learn a lot more about the business. Additionally, technical SEO can have a significant impact. If there are technical SEO blockers in a short amount of time, you can almost always see some impact from that. So if they've got pages that are blocked that shouldn't be blocked, if they've got pages that that aren't indexed and should be indexed, and you can move that along. If you've got structured data that you can implement that will allow them to get rich results that they were not getting before, then that can help move things along a lot. So always, particularly when you take on a new client, it's worth not ignoring the need for some immediate results. So try to find some ways to get something going. And what the best way to do it, as I say, the layered approach, is to do the quick wins and start laying the foundations for the other things at the same time. One of the things that I would do as a consultant, and one of the things that I tend to do with my SEO projects overall, is to try to do R&D and implementation, top and tail them. So in 1 month, you would let's say we were going to do image optimization or whatever, right? So 1 month we are doing on page stuff. So 1 month we're doing image optimization and we're getting all the images ready. And then the next month we're going to upload them, implement them after they've all been approved, et cetera, and add some new ones, et cetera. In this, and then in the same month, while you're getting all your images ready, maybe that's when you do the implementation for adding a few blogs, or adding a few or adding in your H1s or something. So 1 month in each month, you should have some implementation stuff that you're doing, and you should have some stuff that you're building, so that way you're always implementing something. This is really good for a few reasons. One, it shows that you're moving things along, and that things are not stagnant. And it's great to be able to report, this month we did this, and this. Right? That's great to report. That shows that the marketing team, the executive team, that you're moving things forward. And it's also, if you try to do everything all at once, for instance, if you're to do image optimization, for instance, if you try to do it all in the same month or in the same period, then it's sometimes difficult to see how it's all rolling out in the space of a month. But if you do the planning for it, and you get them involved in the planning, and then you roll it out over the course of the month, and you say, and you also and you ever seen The Sandlot? And in The Sandlot, they say, oh, Babe Ruth, he called his shot right? So if you say we should be able to see impact from this in about 2 months, So we started this. I can see that it's implemented properly because we're starting to see some impressions, for instance. So the implementation is correct, but we should start to see the impact in about 2 months. And if they can see that in 2 months that yes, they can see the impact of it, then that's great as well. So set the expectations for when they should see impact for each individual section, and that's really really useful. Um, and I think that setting those expectations should be really really useful. I think also we forget that as search marketers, we have lots of tools that can help people across multiple channels. So there's going to be some people who are really really SEO forward, really website forward. There's going to be teams that are more social forward, right? So particularly a lot of small businesses have start on social media, and then they move more onto websites, for instance. If you're working with bigger brands, they tend to have a lot of paid, right? They've got a lot of paid things that they're working on and that they've got going. So look at where you can help with some of those paid campaigns, for instance. If you can optimize some of the pages which are working for both paid campaigns and also for organic campaigns, then that can potentially bring down the cost for the paid campaigns, and that will give you some ROI because the paid campaigns, they are served based on what the content is on the page. If the content isn't optimized, if the content isn't working, if the content has like the wrong priority for what's at the top, like let's say the sales button is way 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 down the fold, and you can see that as an SEO, you can go, that's not a great place, and we can test that with some CRO tools, or we can bring in a CRO team to help us with that, for instance. Then you're able to help with some of those levers. Similarly, if they are doing a lot of working with influencers, then you can help them vet which backlinks are going to be most important for them. If they're doing a lot of sponsorship, you can say, well, this place is a good place to sponsor because this place is like, I think I was working with a client and they were doing something with a marathon, for instance. And I said, are y'all getting links from your marathon sponsorship? And they were like, huh? And I was like, y'all are getting links, right? Are you getting, like, you got like a blog? Can you like put a little blog something on the page that says like, our place is sponsoring this thing? It doesn't have to be like, War and Peace. It doesn't have to be the most beautiful thing that was ever written, but you are getting a link, right? And they were like, oh no, we hadn't thought of that. And I'm like, yeah, no, you should. That's really important because this local marathon also has a local keyword that is attached to it that will be valuable for your business. And these are things that they're not even going to think about. Similarly, like if you're looking at their LinkedIn profile, LinkedIn shows on Google, all over Google. If they're big on LinkedIn, then you can have a look at their LinkedIn and you can say and you don't need to take over their LinkedIn, but you can say, if we put these keywords in, that will help us with the LinkedIn ranking will help us with the Google ranking. It'll help with that. And we can sort of bring those things together. So I think that it's really important to think about first, listening to them, like, I see you. So listening to them about, needing to get some results fairly quickly and like trying to find those quick wins where you can. Also, leaning into the channels that they're really happy with. If they're getting some good results on social, then bridge the things that you can do for search that will help them on social, including schema markup, for instance, where you tie in the same as so that they understand the entities are the same, making sure that the links are all the same so that they actually get clear traffic rather than it just going into the direct swamp. And making sure that you're helping them to get the most out of those channels using all of the tools that and all of the data that you have as a search marketer. And I think that will help you to get buy-in and, again, to be more valuable for the teams you're working with.
I want to talk a little bit about resources. And I think you made mention that there's like some foundational things that you can do. And I think regardless of your experience with SEO or regardless of your role, it's just like research those types of things that you can kind of hit the ground running and start working on. I guess what is your perspective on when you need dedicated resources to SEO, whether that is like hiring a person internally that's all they do, whether that's hiring an agency, like when is the point where you do that? And like, how do you have that conversation with your executive team that like, in order for us to take this to the next level, we need some more focus on our SEO strategy?
So I think that this will very often be dictated by the market. And will also be dictated by your competitors. If you're finding that you're not visible on search, but that the search volume for the thing that you're working on, for your vertical shows that you should be visible on search. And if you're finding that you're not able to get the solutions that you need for your business without search, then I think that's a time to think about what you need. Agencies are a great place to start with this because agencies can give you different services, different service levels depending on your needs. So not everybody needs a full comprehensive everyday SEO all the time. Some people need a little bit to get started. With digital maturity, we have a podcast about digital maturity that I think is super important, and it's really important to understand where you are with your digital maturity, because like sometimes whenever I do audits and stuff, I always say, okay, who's implementing this? Like, is it like, are you implementing it, and or is the dev implementing it, or have you got a marketing team? Like, well, who's implementing what we're recommending? Or are you asking me to implement it, because that's a completely different thing? And I think that it's really really important to understand your capacity and to set your expectations in accordingly. So sometimes it might be that you need like classic SEO, right? A good example is, if you're somebody who's working in a space that has a lot of rich results, for instance, and you don't have, you're not showing in rich results, then you probably need an SEO, right? Like you probably need an SEO. If you are somebody who's like a recipe site and you don't have like rich results for your recipes, you probably need an SEO to help you with that, to help you optimize that. And it could be a project. And you can figure out, what that's going to cost, and you can cost that, and you can get a quote for that and stuff like that. But you basically will not be able to compete, because some of these things are not negotiable. Similarly with jobs, like job boards are very, very similar. There's a few other rich result type things like that. If you're working in e-commerce, then like you need to be connected to Google Merchant Center. And if you're not working in that, and if you're not there, then that's going to be a really big, big challenge for you to compete. So there's going to be some times where the nature of the SERP, the search engine results pages, kind of dictates that you, if you don't have it in house, are going to need to get some additional assistance to work with that. If you're in a different space where it's not so mission critical, then I think it's a question of looking at the size of the market, looking at how serviceable is it, how many people are searching for it, and whether or not you have room for growth, and whether that the room that you have for growth is applicable to the amount of investment that you're going to be putting in. So if it's the case that I don't know, you're selling something super niche, like I don't know, sweaters for cats with spots on them or something. I don't know. I'm just making things up. But if you're selling something super super niche, then maybe you're not expecting to make millions and millions out of it, and so maybe you don't need formal SEO support in that way. That doesn't necessarily mean that you can't find some kind of SEO support. So there's a lot of SEO consultants who are now running like a coaching session kind of thing, or they'll have like courses, for instance. So it could be that you take a course, and then you can sort of grow your SEO as you go. One of the things that's great about SEO, and this is useful for businesses and for executives as well to think about, is that you don't have to do it all in one go. SEO is like, it's like working out. Like you just keep going, right? You just keep going, and you will see improvement. If you keep going and you keep doing it, you will see improvement. So, you go to the gym, you're not going to start off running a marathon. Like you might start off walking a lot. And then, but if you keep going, then you could very easily run get yourself up to the marathon. So you could sort of go, this year, we're going to do this. And just get that going. And then next year, we're going to try again and go back. And you can always keep optimizing those things, even with content. If you think about somebody like Salesforce, this is an example flagged to me by Ross Simmons, but he was saying like Salesforce ranks for like CRM, and they've ranked for CRM for years, for like 10 years, they've ranked top for CRM, and they jostle for like 1-2 position or whatever, but they keep optimizing that one URL because it's that valuable for them. And so it's important for them to, their first go at that page wouldn't have been the rockstar page that it is now. You can go back, you can re-optimize. Sometimes you just need to get on the board. And I think that it's important to think about that. And when we think about resources and when we think about, what to do first, how much to invest. Sometimes you can invest a small amount, and just set your expectations that you maybe won't get a gigantic reward, but you can test whether or not this is a viable channel for you.
Shout out to Ross Simmons. If you're not following Ross, you probably should. So I want to maybe hit on content real quick. I think I've never met an executive that is like says no to content and doesn't think that their brand needs content. So it's like an easy, like maybe Trojan horse to get into the SEO conversation. Is there a way that you've seen, like, starting with content? Hey, CEO, hey, CMO, we're doing content right now, but if we invest more time into SEO, then our content will maybe get us better results than it's already getting. Like, what ways have you seen that work, and maybe push the conversation with executives forward by going through content first?
Yeah, so my background, my heart of heart is tech SEO, and tech SEO is a great one for this, because tech SEO, if they like the content, if they're loving the content experience, and you've got a good content creation workflow, which is not easy to get going, like it's saying, so you'd be like, oh yeah, we'll just make content. It's more complex than that, y'all. And a round of applause for people that do it really well, because it's not super easy. So people that make it look easy, like, well done. But technical SEO is a great one for this, because there are technical SEO option optimizations that you can do on top of content that can really make it sing, and then there's technical SEO optimizations that you can SEO optimizations. I did it. Oh no. But there are technical SEO things that you can do that will make the content that you have, make it more accessible with a lowercase a to different users, which is really, really valuable. And you don't have to get any more content approvals. You just need to get a little bit of dev time. You just need to update some things. So, this can include improving the crawlability. So I've had it before where clients had a whole section of their website that was the login page for logged in users, but didn't have any private information, but was just like the login landing page, and it was all indexable. That didn't need to be indexed. It didn't need to be indexed at all. And we had pages that did need to be indexed that weren't getting indexed because Google was getting stuck on all of these pages that they didn't need. So if we're able to clear those out, then that's great. That makes the other content more visible. I think that there's also, structured data. I'm a big fan of that. And there's some great stuff that you can do there. There's content repurposing, where you're taking, which isn't exactly technical, but let's say you take content that's really great and you add in, new images, infographics, that sort of thing. That can be really useful. Additionally, if you can make pages faster, that can make a big difference. If you can make the images load faster, make the images smaller, make the images more optimized for mobile, that sort of thing. Those can be really, really useful, because again, as I said, sometimes with technical SEO, you can see the update, you can see the impact really quickly. Rich Results is a great one for this, because you can show them the screenshot of what their content looked like before on Google and what it looks like now, and it almost always impacts your click-through rate as well, which helps with rankings, which helps with lots of things. Even though structured data is not technically a ranking factor, even though the Rich Results show at the top of Google, which basically, to my mind, is basically the same. But anyway, so technical SEO, in my opinion, can be a great driver for that. And it can also be very project led. So I've had it before where, we had a client and they were e-commerce and they didn't have their images on their sitemap. Just so people know, Wix has images included in your sitemap anyway. So just letting you know. But yeah, they didn't have their images included in their sitemap. And I was like, y'all, we need our images included in the sitemap. And it's a simple project, right? You can be like, this is going to take me a a couple of hours to to do the, to brief out the implementation. Then I'll give it to the devs, and then it'll take me like a couple of hours to check the implementation, and then I'll do a couple of hours later on to just make sure that it's rolling out appropriately. And you can be like, this will take me this amount of time. It will cost you this much, and then and that's that. And we should see this impact, or we should see a nice boost. And that's really, really good, because like that's not an open-ended, forever and ever SEO project. That's a very concise, very contained SEO project. And if you can get some good impact on something like that, then they're more likely to get the SEO buy-in further on. Additionally, backlinks, link building type things, or even citations can be really useful as well, because again, that's another nice, tidy SEO project. Like I mentioned, Google Business Profile. If they don't have a Google Business Profile, if you can say, we can set up your Google Business Profile over the course of the next week or the next month or something, and it will cost you this much, or like blah blah blah, then and they can see the impact, and they can say, all this great content that you've got on the website, we can take that and we can connect the two between the Google Business Profile and your site, and that allows you to bring all of the things that they like and enhance and build upon the content that they understand and feel good about. And again, like I said, the layered approach. So you can go back and you can just add more layers to it, and in a way that will give them like a nice impact in a fairly timely manner. And that will give them, and once they get a taste of that, they're more likely to be like, okay, great, what can we do next? Like, what's the next thing that we can do? That's a great way.
As we're kind of rounding the corner on this conversation, I want to talk maybe a little bit about results. We've talked about tying results to revenue. That obviously is important and should be a focus. I think as marketers, one of our primary roles, whether we like it or not, is the internal marketing and managing up and making sure people understand the impact of what we're doing. What have you found just on the SEO front as the best way, or maybe ideal approaches that you've seen successful to kind of share the results? Is it over a weekly basis, monthly basis, team meeting, Slack? Like, what have you found to be ideal?
So I think this will depend on the team. I know some folks that really like WhatsApp. I know some people who have like an open channel with their clients on Slack. I know some clients for whom that would be not a good situation. I know some people who, after I know some clients who just like a little email just to know that the campaign's going well. And I remember being an account exec and being like, oh, I must write this very long-winded report, and it must have all of the details and everything that's all of the da-da-da. And then somebody else was working on the account, and they were like, yeah, we launched the ad campaign on Facebook, and it got this many impressions, and we've seen 50% this and this. And the MD was like, great, thanks. I was like, what? He was not reading my 500, 700 word, like 2,000 word blah that I was spending way too much time on. He wasn't reading all of that, but he was very happy to get a 200 word, like super quick summary email. Like, we launched the campaign on the Friday. On the Monday, he got a little snapshot of what was going on. He was very happy to hear about that. So that was the lesson that I learned, that, listen to the people you're talking to. If you're in regular conversation, that's great. And, don't think that quiet clients are happy clients, because they are almost certainly not. And I think that, try to meet them where they are. If they're the kind of people that write long emails, they probably want long emails. If they're the kind of people that write short emails, they probably want short emails. If they're kind of people who are more likely to send you a DM, then they're probably people who'd rather have a DM. And so pay attention to the signals that they're giving you, and be flexible. And I think that's really important, particularly when you're showing like some of the quick wins. Obviously, you want to have your reporting consistent, and you want to be doing your reporting on a consistent basis, whether or not you're having a weekly meeting or a monthly meeting, about whatever your KPIs are, or, you're having like a big meeting quarterly, for instance. Obviously, you want to have that all in hand, particularly for working with larger teams. But for the sort of like, hey, we just got this featured snippet, guys. Like, it's useful to have a channel that's that's fairly fluid and that people can respond to quickly, and they can, and that they expect to see an email from you, like maybe on Monday, that's like, oh, hey, we got this featured snippet, it looks great. Or, hey, remember those rich results, they're on now. Or, and also, don't underestimate the value of like just little check-ins. So let's say they approved a blog, and it took and sometimes it takes ages to get the blog approved. When the blog goes live, hey, that blog you approved is live. Thanks for your help with that. Hey, that image that you sent me from the marathon that you sponsored, I just put that on. Here you go. It's looking great. And this goes for not just for the executive team that you're working with, but like you said, internally as well, including developers. People sometimes forget about that, but I have an article on my personal blog that, and from an interview, or from a video series that I did with Google, with Martin Schmidt from Google, about SEOs and devs. And one of the things that you can do to keep devs on side is to let them know how it all went. So you ask them to yeah, right. So you ask them to like take this time and implement this thing, and change around the parameters so that it's better optimized for mobile, or make sure that we've got UTMs that are generating, or whatever it is that you ask them to do. Let them know that it's, oh, hey, that thing that you updated, we've seen a 10% uptick in X, Y, and Z. Thanks so much for your help with that. People want to know the end of the story. If you ever watched a video and it cuts off before they get to the end, you're like, what happened? How many times have I watched the end of a terrible film because I started it, and even though the film is terrible, I need to find out whether or not they actually got to the end of the car chase. Like, I just need to know, even though the film is terrible, because like we need a beginning, middle, and an end.
We're humans. We need resolution. And maybe like the punctuation point I'd love to put on this conversation, which has been a lot of fun. And I'd love to maybe close out with this, is just like, we know, just as marketers, the impact of SEO, that maybe the cost of not implementing great SEO and what that can do or not do for our brand. Like, maybe as we close this out, what's the best way to communicate maybe the cost of not doing SEO or focusing on SEO to kind of the decision makers or the executives within our business?
I mean, like, FOMO is like, in my experience, like, it's FOMO. If real talk, it's FOMO. Like, if you say your competitors are getting this much traffic, your competitors are getting these like beautiful search results, and you're not. Your competitors are getting this result because they did that, and we could do that, but we're not doing that. That can be a very, very big impetus. And I think that's it's really important to understand those drivers. And I think also it's really important as an SEO to understand which competitors are the competitors they know about and the competitors they don't know about. Because sometimes online, the competitor is different. And a lot of times the competitor is Amazon. And it's important to understand what folks are doing there, and how you can like bridge the gap. Because consumers are shopping at all of the places. Consumers are going to all the websites. Consumers are not just going to your website. Users are not just going to your website. And if you are selling anything, they're going to go to Amazon to look for it as well. So you need to understand what it is that gets people over the line on your competitor's website, and how you can, reduce the gaps there, and how you can make sure that your customer experience is on par with the experience that that the customers are going to be checking out on all of the other web pages. So FOMO is super important, and that comes from understanding the market, and doing your research, which is going to make you more valuable to the executive team.
There was a Sandlot reference in there. There was some Pacers talk, but we talked about SEO too. So Crystal, thank you so much for coming on. Everyone, check out her podcast, SERP's Up SEO podcast. We'll have to do this again. Thanks so much.